and I did not run any ads. So they came across me completely organically and requested to join this community and this workshop. I broke all the rules because that's what I do. I'm a rule breaker and a disruptor. So I did low tech. This was about, I'm not doing emails. I did get emails, the emails for the list, but I sent no emails. I did not do a chat bot with reminders. I did create events. I did no major tagging and DMing outside of just kind of the basics of like onboarding people, welcome, super cool, tagged on the important stuff, but literally the most low tech version. I didn't do any of the bells and whistles. And at the end of that week, because I showed up so fully, so real, so raw, so authentically in how I shared value, I closed 65K in sales at the end of that week.
What's going on, everybody? Arne here for another episode of the Community and Conversions Show. As always, bringing you guys some awesome leaders who are making a big impact, making some good money, and changing the world one community at a time. So, Stacy, I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Arne. I absolutely love it. I love everything that you teach, and it really is all about community when it comes to our impact, legacy, and success long term.
100%. And you've had such a range of experiences. You know, as I've gotten to know you, I even got to know you more in reading the bio that you sent in. I was like, wow, I didn't know you had all that going on too. So you guys are in for a treat. So listen close. Stacy's story is amazing, and what she's doing for people is amazing too. So listen close, pay attention, take action on this stuff. You know, we're not just here to entertain you. We're here to change your lives however we can. So listen for those little things that you guys can take some action on. But a little bit more background on Stacy. So she's a best-selling author, podcast host, Iraq war veteran, badass biker chick, leader, mentor, authenticity alchemist, helping revolutionary leaders to shatter the invisible ceiling to effortlessly elevate their lifestyle, leadership, and legacy while enjoying the ride. That's a mouthful. That's great. I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And so today I know we're going to be talking about some of the things that people can do to get more sales from their community, and do that with confidence, with authenticity, and just really, really come into it and kick ass. So right before we hopped on, you started to share a little bit of a story of how you were able to do this recently. What happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, you know, I don't launch often in the quintessential sense of a launch, right? You know, those of us who have communities, we know sort of this overarching launch process, whether you do, you know, a single masterclass or you do a multiple day workshop. So I did a pop-up community for this workshop that I did. There were some people who were already in there from the previous round of this workshop. Ultimately, between current clients, previous people, all the things, I had about 20 people in this group that were really potential leads. And what was interesting is quite a few of these 20 were 100% cold. They knew nothing about me, and I did not run any ads. So they came across me completely organically and requested to join this community and this workshop. I broke all the rules because that's what I do. I'm a rule breaker and a disruptor. So I did low tech. This was about, I'm not doing emails. I did get emails, the emails for the list, but I sent no emails. I did not do a chat bot with reminders. I did create events. I did no major tagging and DMing outside of just kind of the basics of like onboarding people, welcome, super cool, tagged on the important stuff, but literally the most low tech version. I didn't do any of the bells and whistles. And at the end of that week, because I showed up so fully, so real, so raw, so authentically in how I shared value, I closed 65K in sales at the end of that week. And I only did 3 days of training. That was
Wow.
it. So I had 3 days. I had homework. I supported these people through the homework, but I leaned in and showed up so fully. They leaned in, and those people went from cold to close in that short period of time because I was so myself. And that resonated so deeply. And at this point now, those clients are re-enrolling now
That's awesome.
to work with me because they're so aligned, so perfect. And I had, let's see, 3 clients. So it's pretty good. You know, I had of those people in that group, you know, that percentage that they leaned in and reached out to me. But of those 3 people that asked for a sales call, I had 100% close rate because it was just so aligned. So
That's
I
awesome.
allowed it to be easy and effortless.
That's so cool. And yeah, because so many times people often, add in so many more of those bells and whistles and spend the time on this, that, and the third. And they're stuck on a lot of the admin stuff without like, okay, well, what's the message? How am I going to show up? What's the offer? How can we make this really aligned in these other areas for the audience? Because the audience doesn't see all that behind the scenes stuff that we're dealing with. Oh crap, I got this domain to fix. I got this, blah, blah, blah. They see what gets put out there. So if the time and the energy isn't spent into what's actually going out, they're not going to have the same experience. So that's awesome.
Well, exactly. And, you know, we can get so drained in getting stuck doing what I call prep purgatory, right? We're all in that prep space, you know, getting ready, and that there's nothing left for us to fully show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? Y'all are grown ass adults. I want empowered people to want to work with me, but also being transparent with you about the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That I showed up so fully for really like 20 people. And I'm not discounting like current clients who always get value from the experience or former clients who get value from the experience that were there. But really, when you're talking about, you know, lead gen and potential sales, 20 people. And a lot of people would be like, well, why even do it?
Yep.
Well, like, because at the end of the day, we're now talking re-enrollment, you know, that's 6 figures that ends up banking me between all the people that enrolled and then the re-enrollment. So don't discount those few people when they're super aligned.
Yep. 100%. Because that's also another question I get from a lot of people often, where they're like, oh, I have this many members in my group, how much should I be making? Or, oh, well, I only have a small audience, or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, that doesn't really matter all that much, to be honest. Like, I have my big group that's 80K and I have a smaller one that's about 3,500. I get more clients from the 3,500 one, right? It's crazy what you can do when you have the right people, the right message, the right room, and you have that alignment. There you go. That was 65K front end revenue off of 20 people, well, 3 people and 20 participating that re-enrolled and turned it into a 6-figure effort. So everybody watching that should understand that. I don't care how many people you got in your audience. If you can get those other parts right and work with somebody to help you make sure that those pieces are in place, you're going to be good to go. So that's cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I know when I started, that was one of those things for me, was always just getting so locked in on the numbers that I was really discounting the value, that it's like, wait, you know, when you're creating those new offers or you're making those changes, the people are already in your world, and small numbers don't matter if it's the people who are aligned with your message and your offer and what you're doing. And so it's way more about quality over quantity. My current free Facebook group, I just purged a bunch of people and I think I'm down to like, I don't know, like 230 or 250 people. My email list, I think I just hit like right around 1,000 people. And I am a almost 7-figure business. So you don't need the numbers. You don't need the numbers when it's the right people in your world.
100%. So what do you think helped you kind of get some more of those pieces aligned? Because of course it wasn't always that way that everything lined up so well. So you want to share a little bit of that? And like, were there spots where you were stuck or frustrated that parts weren't aligned? And kind of how did you go about fixing that and making it work?
Absolutely. That's my jam. That's my space that I like to play in all the time, right? All the stuff that really creates our mindset and who we're being and how we're showing up for our life, our leadership, our legacy in the world. So I would say the first 3.5 years of my business were a lot of hiding in the hustle, a lot of working really, really hard with little to no ROI because I was struggling through doing it all on my own, chasing strategy after strategy. In fact, most of the time I was a freebie chaser, or what I call freebie chasers. Let me do the free class and the free this and the free that, right? And consuming a ton of content, but never really getting dialed in on who do I desire to be as an entrepreneur, as a leader, and the impact that I was called to make in the world. I was very short-sighted. Around just over 2 years ago was when I invested in working with my first business coach to really dial things in, not only on the external piece, like who do I want to serve? How do I want to serve them, at this higher level, but who do I need to be? And doing a lot of that inner work as well.
Yep.
And I've leaned so much into that inner work piece because really, right, our success is like 90% inner work and 10% strategy. And probably a good bulk of that strategy really is about what are the actions to take to support the inner work. So it's been really since putting out my best-selling book, because I shared so much of my real raw truth and story in that. There's kind of that condensed piece, but that really lifted the veil on how I showed up for myself and for my business. So really creating that super aligned, authentic brand as a personal brand, because initially when I started my business, I was hiding and not creating a personal brand. And so there was a lot of the pieces of me, like the veteran, the biker chick, stuff like that, that nobody knew. I didn't share that in my business. I didn't think it was important. It was like, no, I'm getting results for my clients. That's all that matters, right? But that's not what people follow. They wanted to know my story.
Yep.
So, I happened to put that in the context of a book, but the more, even since then, the more I share my story publicly on social media, in my communities, in my content, all the stuff, the more it resonates with my audience and they know, oh, she's leading by example. And she can actually help get me to the results that I desire, because nobody cares about the alphabet soup of certifications and credential. They don't. And I don't mean to discount education in any fashion or form, because I have a ton myself. It's just, that's not what I lead with. I lead with the story.
100%. And so what do you think helped you finally start, sharing your personal brand out more? Because I know in working with so many people, they get stuck on that. They're like, oh, well, I post about my topics. I'm like, tell more stories, please. We want to get to know you. So how did you kind of break through that part?
It is scary, right? Because we have all those fears and they're legitimate. We've been rejected. We've been judged in our lifetime. But what I had to understand was where that was coming from. And for me, it was actually understanding that it was self-judgment and self-rejection. Nothing like just knocking over my microphone. On live, it's all good. I'll just hold it. We're fine. So yeah, why not? It's all good. I'm like, that's weird. Okay, we'll fix it later. So, understanding it was self-rejection and self-judgment. So I had to shift my relationship with myself in order to step into that knowing of, I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And the more confident I was in who I am and how I'm showing up in the world, you don't even have the haters. Like, we're so afraid of the haters and those people just sort of fall away. The more confident you are in your truth, your voice, your power, and who you're here to serve, how you're here to serve them, all the rest of that stuff falls away. So I had to really focus on shifting that relationship with myself. That's really that starting point. And that's how I knew the stories to share, because I saw the lessons, learned the lessons from the stories and the value in each of those stories. And now I can confidently share this trauma, this experience, this epic fail in a really empowering way, because I know the lessons. And these are the lessons that I share with you so that you can learn the lessons. That's the value. That's the value.
100%. And I think that's what a lot of people miss is when they are holding those stories back because of that fear of judgment, they're missing the opportunity to connect with people at a new level. And I've had that happen on such random subjects before. Like I remember one time I made a post about something like what skateboarding taught me about entrepreneurship. And I talked about all these different things of, how much I used to skate as a kid and doing this and doing that and falling down and getting up and, creating community and all these things. And I got like a handful of messages from people that had been following me that I never talked to. They're like, "Oh, that's so cool. I used to skate too," and blah 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 blah. I was like, "Wow, that's totally random." But you never know what's gonna strike a chord with somebody.
Exactly. And that's what makes you memorable. Any pictures that I share of me on my motorcycle, people remember. Anytime I talk about my military service, people remember.
Yep.
I just shared the video of me riding my motorcycle. I think it was like on Monday. And I was like, hey, being a biker taught me about leadership, taught me about business. And I shared a bunch of those lessons very similar to your skateboarding post. And I was like, all right, guys, what hobbies and unusual things do you do that has taught you how to be a better leader and business owner? And it's amazing the responses that people have.
100%. And just want to kind of like pull out extra that part you said about being memorable, because that's one thing I'm always trying to drive home with my clients is anybody can go post tips and Googleable X, Y, and Z and stuff you can find on YouTube. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be valuable. But what's going to make sure that they attach that value to you forever is that aspect of being memorable. And nobody has your story. So being able to really get that out there is what's going to make that stick, make you stand out, and get what I call niche notoriety, where they remember you anytime your topic is mentioned, they think of your name. And that's super powerful. So guys, go give that a try today. If that's one takeaway you can have from today's show, go post your story, make it something memorable, something unique, and share what's real for you.
And remember, you don't have to put it all out in one post. You have time. You can share one little tiny snippet, share the lesson, something interesting, something unique, and then just keep that going, and that is absolutely how people will resonate with you being a real person. It's easy for those haters to jump on somebody that they don't think is a real person because they're so disconnected from seeing you as human. And the more real and raw and vulnerable you are, the more they're like, oh, wow, they see themselves through your story. So we're sharing the story, not for our value, but for them.
Yeah. And I remember that was a big realization I had a while back was when we're sharing our personal brand and our stories, people don't care all that much about us. They care about becoming that best version of themselves. And if we can be a representative for what's possible for them, that's what's really magnetic about it. So keep that one in mind, guys. It's not just about, oh, hey, look at me on a bike. It's like, oh, if you represent going after your dreams, then maybe they have some dreams they want to go after and they're inspired by you doing it,
Yeah. I just hit my 1-year anniversary of making my big move from Pennsylvania to Florida to start my dream life. We had the plan, and then to make the plan become our reality is a big deal because there's so many people who dream and never act on it. Even successful entrepreneurs who they still have that next thing that they're like, I really want that, but they don't go after it and make it happen
Yep.
or allow it to happen.
And I know that's a big part of your work too, and helping people go after what they really want. Can you kind of explain kind of what you do in some of your coaching and services and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I lovingly say I help alpha leaders shift from intimidating to influential. So if you've ever been called intimidating or too smart, too loud, too funny, too rambunctious, too skilled, too talented, whatever, if you've been called to anything, it's usually in that ballpark. But what's interesting is we have the ability to create a ton of external success fairly easily because we can take action and make some stuff happen. But because we've got some deep inner wounding, it actually creates this invisible ceiling on the amount of pleasure, power, purpose, and prosperity we allow ourselves to experience. So elevating, our impacts, influence, and income really is an internal shift. So there's a lot of deep inner healing. And I've created a container where we address physical, emotional, and energetic healing at the same time. So you're able to just quantum leap your results without bypassing anything. Because, as entrepreneurs, most of us are really good at jumping to step 7 without doing 1, 2, or 3. Because we're like, no, I want the results yesterday. So trust me, I see you. I know what you're doing. And we do it internally a lot because we're really good at avoiding our emotions and our power. So the results happen a lot faster than you realize, but the inner work is the hard work, but that's your easy button to external success, to the health, love, and relationships, income, and impact you desire. It's doing that hard inner work.
Yep.
So yeah, that's kind of the magic of what I do.
And it's funny because nobody wants to hear that, but they all know it's true.
Yeah. And I avoided it like the plague. Again, I am lead by example. I was my first client. My rock bottom moment was only 6 years ago. But because I was willing to lean in and do all of that inner work, I've been able to do more in 6 years than some people do in a lifetime. And it's just because I allowed it to happen and focused on the right things, even surrounding myself with the right community.
100%. So I know your story, but I know a lot of people don't as much. Do you want to get into that on like some of those big shifts you made and kind of how you became the badass biker chick you are today?
Sure. Talk about so what's interesting is I was my first client really leaning into my own trauma and addiction recovery journey. So like I said, my rock bottom moment was only 6 years ago. So I was in the grips of PTSD, depression, anxiety, a ton of chronic health conditions. I was more than 100 pounds overweight. I was walking with a cane. My marriage was in shambles. I'd lost my corporate career as a pharmaceutical chemist, and I was numbing out like crazy, avoiding me, avoiding my emotions, avoiding my pain and my baggage. And so at my rock bottom, I'm standing in my kitchen, just grabbing food out of the cabinet, shoving it in my face, chasing it with a bottle of booze, bawling my eyes out. When I have this moment of clarity and I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? And for the first time, perhaps in a decade, I actually was present enough with myself to receive the answer. And it was, I'm trying to make my body look as ugly as I feel on the inside because I hate myself. Which of course meant I start bawling even harder in that moment, because I realized it was my choices that created that moment and that way of being. It was spending a lifetime pretending to be someone else, building a life of shoulds, wearing that mask of who I thought I should be rather than listening to myself. And I was miserable. So I went to my trauma therapist the next week, like, I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. I'm over it. She's like, well, what are you done with? And I said, I'm done trying to control anything other than myself. And it was a really powerful shift and literally just a decision. And I made the choice to start showing up for me for the first time in my life in a really, really, really long time, and start that healing journey. And literally 2015 was the year. At the beginning of 2015, I reset my health and lost all the weight that year, over 100 pounds that year, got off all my meds, started my business, realizing, wait, I can get paid to do what people have been coming to me for my entire life, like helping them with their problems. Awesome. Like I knew nothing of coaching or mentorship before that. Like it was so interesting. And so, yeah, transformed my marriage, created boundaries for the first time in my life ever. I became a boundaries expert because I had none.
Yep.
And really just leaned into the process.
Love it.
Of transformation. So, yeah.
Completely. And I think boundaries is such a big part of all of that transformation because, you know, in that moment of clarity, you saying, I'm done with this bullshit. That's a boundary for yourself on like, okay, how do I really want to shape who I want to be next? And how does that inform my decisions and how I interact with myself and other people? So you want to talk on that real quick? I always find people always love that topic of boundaries because they don't always think of boundaries in terms of for themselves. They think of it as rules for other people, but really using boundaries for ourselves and, you know, living a better life through making better decisions.
Oh, absolutely. That is the magic, is understanding that boundaries are the skill that most people really are missing when it comes to creating everything that they desire. And most gurus teach boundaries wrong because they always talk about it in the context of external relationships. Mm-hmm. Here's the simplest understanding of boundaries for you moving forward is boundaries have everything to do with your relationship with you, nothing to do with the relationships with other people. Every one of those external relationships is simply a mirror reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. So, simple, easy one. If someone is not respecting you in some form or fashion, maybe they're not respecting your time, your energy, your wisdom, your money, whatever it is, it's because you are not respecting your time or your energy or your wisdom or your body. I mean, think about how we talk to ourselves in our head. Pretty damn disrespectful, right? Like just the simplest boundary of no disrespect takes care of about 80 to 85% of our boundary problems. Mm-hmm. And it starts with, are you willing to fully respect you, your relationship with yourself? And that changes everything because that's the foundation upon which everything else is built. Your marriage, your family, your business, your leadership are all built on the foundation of you and your relationship to you. Mm-hmm. Boundaries are really simple. It's about responsibility. What are you responsible for? What are you not responsible for? Yep. You are only responsible for you. That's why it's only about your relationship with you. And that's the starting point, because resources like time and money, the food you choose to eat, what you choose to do with your body, those are boundaries with you. Yep. So, yeah, whether or not you show up for your business, that's your boundaries.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably a good exercise to lead people with too, is like, you know, spend 15 minutes writing out some of these things, because right now you guys already have boundaries, whether you think about them as boundaries or not, but maybe they're not defined. So really kind of exploring what that means to you, and then thinking about which ones you want to have in place next, both with yourself, with other people. Any of that can really change the game for you. So as we get towards wrapping up here, is there any kind of, you know, biggest advice you would want to leave for all these community leaders that are listening today on, you know, what they can do to truly step into that next version of themselves as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as, you know, successful people, you know, making stuff happen? What would you say?
You know, it's about eliminating the deepest root scarcity, which is I am not enough. That is the biggest thing that gets in the way of people showing up fully, rawly, as real and authentically as can be of highest service to their audience, is some bullshit story in the background that says I'm not good enough, worthy, or deserving of doing this, being this, receiving this, whatever it is. So the more you focus on building that relationship with yourself through boundaries, through consistent routines, just little stuff to help fill your cup and build that relationship, it changes everything. And every time you show up to be of service in your community, don't make it about you, because we've got every story again under the sun that can say, nope, nobody's going to listen, nobody's going to care. People are watching. If you remember, even if it's just one person, your message is meant to hear your message that day, you're being of service and you're delivering value. And that's all that matters. You will get an ROI from it, I promise you. I just came back from filming a television show simply because I was consistent in showing up and being real and being of service in that way and keeping that inner critic in check.
100%. Love it. So great advice as always. Appreciate you for coming on. And it's funny. A lot of times we'll always start out these shows talking something community related, and then it always turns into mindset and habits and how to show up. And that's what we really need, because I'm gonna keep beating into the audience's head, guys. There's plenty of how-tos and tricks and strategies, but it's about becoming the best versions of ourselves to then become that best leader for our community, for our business, for our people, our family, whoever it is. And that's how the magic happens. So Stacy, appreciate you so much for coming on today. And everybody watching, make sure you guys say thank you. Stacy could be out doing something else right now. She's here with us. So really appreciate your time. And for anybody that wants to link up with you or maybe check out your group, where should we send them?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, you are very welcome. Thank you for creating this container. This is awesome. We need to have these conversations. It's absolutely vital. So the best places to find me, if you want to join my free community, it is called the Influential CEO. The central hub for all things Stacy Raske I'm at stacyraske.com. And the best central hub outside of that, if you would like to have it in your pocket, is actually download my Influential app. So it's on all platforms. Just type in Influential. Download it. You'll have my podcast. There you go. My podcast is still loading. Oh, there it goes. You'll have my podcast in your pocket, all of my free resources, YouTube channel, community. You can get the link to get my book off Amazon. It's all about the inner critic, since we talked about that a lot today. And all those juicy things. Plus, you'll stay in the know when things are happening. So.
Love it. All right, guys, go follow along if that caught your interest. And thanks again, Stacy. We will catch you guys all next week for another episode of the show.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.